So I'm down here in the music corner workspace area where I do my journaling with the typewriter. That's about to happen. And it's time to put on some background music. And something came in the mail yesterday that has determined what that's going to be. And it is this. It is the Nirvana Unplugged in New York on from MTV. And I didn't have it on vinyl. I own that album in several other formats along the way. I've owned multiple copies of the CD, had them shattered, replaced them, all that kind of stuff, because that album is in my top handful of albums that has impacted the way I experience and relate to music more than anything else. And there's a lot of people in my generation for whom Nirvana was one of those bands. But this album in particular is more so that than the band's like Smells Like Teen Spirit era kind of stuff. And some of that comes from the fact that I grew up in an evangelical house where I was only allowed to buy music from the Christian bookstore until I got my driver's license and effectively was able to circumvent that on my own. But I got my driver's license in 1991. Which means that as I finally got the freedom to choose my own music was right when Nirvana got super popular. And so they were absolutely a part of that. But this album is what really encouraged me to branch out more from the metal, rock, punk kind of stuff that I had been mostly listening to. I'd been listening to loud, aggressive music because I was angry, right? And the thing is that in a lot of ways, that album also showed me what quiet anger can look like and what other emotions can look like as well. But it's a live concert and to a very small group of people, and it has the feel that I have, like obviously didn't know this at the time, but I have experienced playing music with other people where if you just get a group of people who are good at playing music together, they will often just share the music they love and have learned of other people's stuff with each other. A lot of like, do you know this tune that I learned recently? It's amazing, you should hear it. And instead of pulling out their phone and play it, they play it. Their interpretation of it. They put their own mark on it. But they also sort of reveal to you what influences them and influenced them to be the musicians they are. And it was what really gave me my first peek into the fact that a lot of the musicians that I loved that were playing, music that was all very similar to each other as what was coming out, was in fact influenced by all these other things that I hadn't heard. And I started noticing in interviews when musicians would talk about the things that influenced them. And it got me into the cycle of going to look up and find, and obviously that got easier as the internet became a thing and then online music got easier to find, but go seek out, like in this album in particular, there's one of the best tracks on it is a Lead Belly tune. Lead Belly being blues musician from almost 100 years ago, maybe it is 100 years ago, that I'd never heard of in 1993. And that song puts the hair on the back of my neck every time I hear it to this day, more than 30 years later. That song has gone through many hands along the way, and it influenced a band that I like. And the same thing, like when Dave Grohl, who was in this concert, put out his book and described the music that influenced him, I found new bands that I had not ever heard before. And this album is the beginning of that for me, of branching out and understanding that a loud grunge, chaotic kind of angry sounding band can have been influenced by this acoustic blues thing from a very long time ago. And not just in a, like, I make a reference to it, but like to the point where it was deeply internalized and a thing they played. So all that is to say, if this is an album that is new to you, go seek it out, give it a listen. If you don't think you would like Nirvana because you've heard Smells Like Teen Spirit or one of the other electric grunge versions of one of their songs, give this a listen anyway. Because one of the things that it being acoustic gives you is if those loud, distorted sounds are distracting for you and make it hard to really listen to what's going on in the music, this exposes that a little bit more and exposes some of the beautifully complex and dissonant things that they do resolve in a lot of cases to harmony that go on. And they went to a great deal of effort to make that happen. They brought a cello player in. They're playing acoustic bass, not just plugging a bass in, which a lot of the other people who did Unplugged did. And it makes it not just an album that was, a big deal to me because of when it happened for me, but I think one of, if not the best thing that the MTV ever produced. And it's one of the best live performances ever done. The banter is funny and interesting. It's poignant and sad given what happened not that long afterward when Kurt Cobain, ended his own life. And in many ways, people talk about this concert being sort of his farewell. And that adds to the emotional resonance of the whole thing, which means that it really is a big piece of rock music history. So anyway, all that said, I'm about to listen to it and probably write about it in many of the same ways that I just talked to you about it. Have a good one.